So I'm representing the humanities here today. I myself am a literary scholar, as Natalie already said. I work mainly in post-colonial eco-criticism and environmental justice criticism. I look at literatures from Africa and the South Pacific in particular when I do that. And yesterday at dinner, as a literary scholar, I was asked, okay, so what's the role of narrative? How is narrative or how is writing important? And my answer would be that it is immensely important because it is very important how we actually talk about the current state of affairs, our world, what kind of stories we imagine, how we frame our imaginations of the future. Do we tell hopeful stories? Do we, kind of like, maybe you're not overly optimistic, but at least we can be hopeful that something changes and we somehow, kind of like find ways of making the situation better? Or do we tell doom and gloom stories and let people lose hope? So to start the presentation, to kind of like underline why I think that the humanities and in that sense also literary scholarship is important, I would like to share a quote by literary eco-critic Rob Nixon. I don't know, that's probably also a name that rings a bell to some of you. He's developed a really important concept of slow violence. And Nixon says stories matter. They matter immeasurably. Measurements, data, metrics, and modeling are the lucrative priorities of universities these days. In the face of this pressure to quantify, it is easy for humanities scholars to lose track of what they do best, like explaining why telling a story one way as opposed to another can have profound imaginative, ethical, and political consequences. In a world drowning in data, stories can play a vital role, for example, in the making of environmental publics and in the shaping of environmental policy. So here, I think, is a quote that very neatly summarizes why it is important to also take the humanities into the boat when we talk about sustainability, about the future. So what I attempt to touch upon in my presentation today are two questions that I think fit well into the context of the autumn school and also into the context of today with the workshops that are coming up in terms of the interdisciplinarity and also connecting with the arts. One question would be, why are environmental humanities necessary for sustainability sciences and sustainability or sustainable knowledge? In the sense of reflective knowledge that we all need to actively shape sustainable practices. And the other question is, how can sustainability research be applied or integrated into teaching? So what I'm presenting is a practice example of how we at the Rachel Carson Center actually try to teach in a way to make our students critically reflect on our society, our world, our relationship as humans to the environment and non-human others, and to, from that point, then be able to maybe come up with different perspectives. I wanted to share one definition of environmental humanities that has been around for a couple of years. The field is not really an institutionalized field yet, but it is something that's growing. It is something that's inherently interdisciplinary, as you can see from this quotation by Ursula Heise and colleagues, who say the environmental humanities envision ecological crises fundamentally as questions of socioeconomic inequality, cultural difference, and divergent histories, values, and ethical frameworks. So there's a lot in that definition already that points to what the environmental humanities can actually engage with and what they can actually do. We also came up with our own working definition to kind of like frame what we actually want to teach in our programs. We say environmental humanities engages critical epistemologies and predominantly qualitative methodological approaches. So in that sense, we're on the social science side, using qualitative methods to bring fundamental aspects like meaning, value, or responsibility to the fore of examining linked social and environmental challenges across the world. And why is that important for sustainability and thinking about sustainability? Here's another quote of a colleague, Rachel Carson Center, who says, you know, in order to tackle our problems, the idea of environmentally relevant knowledge must change. And we can't do that by actually looking at different dimensions of our problems from different perspectives. It's not only, you know, we don't only produce data, because if we cannot interpret the data and use it in different contexts, it does not help us to make changes. So he says we cannot dream of sustainability unless we start to pay more attention to the human agents of the planetary pressure that environmental experts are masters of measuring, but they seem unable to prevent. So the question here is kind of like link that data and link that kind of natural science knowledge that is produced to the social, and try to understand how those connect and are related. So I've been talking about we a lot already. The core team in the project I'm working in, that's called Strengthening Environmental Humanities, is my colleague Dr. Anna Antonova, and our professor, Dr. Christoph Mauch, who's also director of the Rachel Carson Center in Munich, who's kind of like the head behind that project idea. And we were very happy to actually score funding by the VW Foundation under their funding line University of the Future to create a new chair in the Environmental Humanities at LMU Munich and set up a fully fledged MA program. So, coming to our teaching programs. At the Rachel Carson Center, there has been a long-standing graduate program in environmental, a certificate program that students could do alongside their master's program. And we have this new master's program, Environment and Society, that only started last year. So we are actually currently, this week, it's the first week of lectures. We've just started with a new intake of students, a second intake, basically. When we asked students why they are interested in these programs, why they sign up for these programs, interdisciplinarity was one of the main keywords that popped up, but also sustainability and a lot of people worrying about the climate and climate change effects. Interdisciplinarity is not only a key feature sought after by our students, but it's also actually represented in the student body. So we have students from a lot of different disciplines studying our programs. In the certificate, we do see more students leaning towards the technical side, to the natural sciences, and in the MA program we have students that previously did more in the social sciences and the humanities. So I'll just very briefly give you an overview, and then we have a lot of time for questions, I think, in the end of the programs. Here my colleagues who are heading the program. Certificate program is an add-on to the main subject studies of the students. As I said, it aims to kind of like foster interest and substantiate and a first engagement with environmental knowledge and environmental humanities. It does introduce students to concepts and themes in the environmental humanities that they would otherwise probably not get in the framework of their studies. And in that, it is a foundation for making informed evaluation of topics related to the environment, and a skill set that a lot of graduates actually said that helped them get jobs, right? So if we talk about what they gained from the program to our graduates, very many of them actually said having that certificate in their pocket actually allowed me to also go maybe in different jobs that I did not envision in the beginning, but it definitely helped me get a job. And we have students who are actually in politics advising, I think even the German chancellor, there's like a committee where one of our graduates is part of. So the certificate program is rather small. It has a mandatory part and a large elective part where we import from a lot of different disciplines. This is similar to the MA program, but what's really special about the certificate program is actually the final projects that students are allowed to do, and very many can be really creative in that project. So the idea is that they do something in their final project where they connect science and practice and produce something that might also be interesting for people outside of academia. And we've had like really cool projects. One student 2 years ago, for example, made her own clothes from repurposed materials and had kind of like a lookbook. We have students who created a board game. We have students who created a guide through Munich for primary school pupils. We have students who created and set up a big exhibition that was running over 2 years about environmentally relevant places in the city of Munich. So there's a lot of creativity, a lot of different formats, and also always this transdisciplinary dimension where what the kind of knowledge the students produce is also carried outside of academia. And then for the MA program, and I'm rushing through that a little bit because I'm looking at time. This is similar. We have like a larger mandatory part, obviously, where students learn disciplinarily specific methods, topics, and themes, but also interdisciplinary. So in the mandatory part, we try to integrate that interdisciplinarity in our teaching. And then in the elective part, we import again from, I think, more than 11 subjects. The students can choose from a range than more than 40 electives actually in the electives part. I want to mention 2 of those mandatory modules. In the first one, we try to be very hands-on. So in that module, we also go outside with students. We do little trips. We get in touch with practitioners in environment and society outside of university and actually visit places and see students, you know, how that bridge also between academia and the real world can actually happen. And then in the P2 module, we do have a lot of presentations, lectures. It's a lecture series where the fellows at the Rachel Carson Center, and it has like a huge fellowship program, and a lot of international scholars coming through present their work. So students get an insight into a variety of topics and themes and research activities, methodologies, these kind of things. Here's an overview of the different disciplines, from literature through media studies, history, all the way to geobiology, marine biology, geology, that students can sample from, actually. So we do have a multidisciplinarity in the program, we do have an interdisciplinarity in the program, and we have this transdisciplinary moments that we try to also get, you know, people from outside into the program and knowledge from the program outside. And then just a very brief again, so this our P1 module in the Introduction to Environment and Society with the field trips has actually been awarded a prize last year because the university also found it, remarkable that kind of interdisciplinary work is actually implemented within a study program. We had a fun excursion to Tallinn in cooperation with a colleague from Tallinn University and worked on environmental craft humanities and brewed our own beer medieval style, so that was also fun. You can see a picture here at the bottom. We had an excursion to the Bavarian National Park where we talked with park personnel about how much one should get involved in shaping a natural environment. And students also get the chance to, kind of like take part in workshops, these kind of things, and actually import those into the program and kind of like get credit for those. So I'm closing here. I see that I ran over my 25 minutes. Sorry about that, but I'm happy to take questions in whatever direction.